Hello,
Hello.
folks. Welcome to our final talk of the day. This is Anuj. You've seen me plenty today, and you'll see me more tomorrow. But I'm here with the WereCleaner team to talk about professionalism and friendship in student game development teams. And with zero further ado, you guys feel free to go ahead.
Nice. Thanks, Anuj. So this is the WereCleaner team. Hi, guys. I'm gonna share, and then we can go around and present. Oh, there we go. Okay. I wanted to make sure I could see people. So without further ado, we'll just introduce ourselves. I'm Mason or Moose. Everyone here is gonna call me Moose, so you should know that I go by Moose. I was a creative director of the WereCleaner. Charlie.
Hello there, everyone. My name's Charlie. I was the lead producer on the WereCleaner, and I'm now an associate producer at TikTok Games.
Hello, I'm Cameron. I was the lead engineer. I'm currently just interning at a indie studio and then just working on various projects.
Hello, I'm Harrison Roberts. I was lead usability on the WereCleaner, and I'm looking for work in the games industry.
And hi, I'm Abby Farhat. I was a mobile engineer and the sort of marketing lead on the WereCleaner, and I am actually by trade an engineer going into a software engineering job in a few months.
Beautiful. And with that, just as a background of what the WereCleaner is, in case y'all don't know, I like to put this in as just say like, why are we talking to y'all? We ended up getting quite a bit of success with the WereCleaner over the past year. We were a student game, which yes, Charlie, thank you for showing your Kyle. We were a student game. All right, this is already devolving. We were a student game that ended up releasing in May 2024, and since then we've gained quite a few accolades from IGF, the Apple Game Store, um, Decade, Unity, Gang, and then most recently Games for Change, which we'll know in the next week or so. We've gained over 1.6 million players across all of our platforms, thousands of overwhelmingly positive reviews. We've sold plushies. We've maintained a 13,000 member Discord community, and we're here to chat with you guys today about just how we manage to kind of work together as a team properly, because that for students is a very weird topic because there's a lot of group projects and then there's like teamwork. And it's kind of different going from like regular classes to working on a game together. There's so much more involved with it. So we're gonna chat with you guys about that. Um, and how this is kind of going to go is like a weird fireside chat, but also more presentational. We've got a bit of exhibits to go along with the questions that I've got on screen here, and we're just basically going to go conversational style of going through these different questions and chatting about all of our different experiences on the team. We were all leads, but then it's an interesting mix of how all of us have been able to um, experience leadership on this team in different ways and work together in different ways. So we've all got different takes on the table here. Um, but without further ado, our first question is basically, how did we structure the team? What did it look like? And how did we actually manage um, online as well as in person leads and crew? And with that, I'm not sharing audio, am I? No, no. Okay.
It's okay. Sorry, just
No,
for
it's
you
not.
then. Oh,
No,
okay.
it's not. So, team structure. We were 34 student devs. This is the only joke slide on this presentation. And it happened because our producer wasn't there during the meeting. He couldn't stop us. So there were 34 student devs on the team. We had 1 year of development, and we had a firm hierarchy. Uh, we had 14 people online, 20 in person, and it basically just went creative director, hi, producer. Charlie's under me for this, but on the screen. He's there. And then all of our leads over here, and then some of these leads ended up having crew underneath them, but some didn't. Uh, Cameron's an example of someone who had crew under them. But yes, I don't know. Someone take it from me. I've talked for a while.
Yeah, I could take it from you. So,
Thank you.
yeah, firm hierarchy. In student teams, I think it's very easy for everyone to want to kind of work on an equal democratic playing field because we're all students, we're all learning something. And while that is a great ideal and is something that can actually work on smaller student teams, and when I say small, I mean like up to 3 people at max. Once you get more people and you introduce levels of management, you really do need to stick with that idea of having a centralized vision holder and having people that own specific areas of the game. So it is very helpful on projects like this to have a creative director like Moose who says, "This is my idea, this is my grand vision for the game." And then I can help him, say what is actually feasible, what can we do, how do we realize that vision. And then every single person inside of their own discipline, all of the leads inside that discipline can own that part of the game, help Moose further realize the vision for that game in that area, and then work with anybody that is beneath them as a crew designer or crew engineer to essentially make the entire thing. So these layers of management, while are they take away from the kind of ideal that everyone has an equal say in a student game, they actually lead to a much more structured game. And I think they actually don't diminish the overall ownership that each individual contributor can have on the project. Because in the way that we structured this project, you could still anybody on the team had a voice, and anybody on the team at any meeting could say their thoughts about the game. And that was really crucial to us. So, firm hierarchy is great, but it doesn't mean that you have to stifle voices at the same time. You can do both of them harmoniously and make something really good out of that.
Yeah, I think that specifically communication is just where you get that like allowance for folks to still have a voice within the team, because it is the like crew can talk to their leads, they can also talk to other leads, not just their own. Like we didn't end up having any type of like stifling of who folks can talk to. Like it was basically an open door policy for everyone. Like I would chat with the crew designers, I would chat with artists, Charlie would too. Like and like all leads would chat with Charlie and I, like, and everyone would like it was more of like a melting pot of we'd all chat with each other if there was something that we wanted to say. Um, yeah.
I'm interested in Cameron's thoughts on this question for how do you manage members of crew because Uh, unfortunately, neither our art director or our that is so funny. Neither our art director or art producer are here. Both of them are excellent, and I think cheering on from the sidelines. But Cameron, besides the art team, had the most people working with her. So Cameron, I'm curious, how did you end up managing the engineering team, and like what are some of the lessons that you took away from that?
Yeah, no, it's kind of weird because I felt like I had like a previous leadership, but it was like it just went all wrong, and I was like, oh, that's not great. But I think when it came to WereCleaner, I knew what I wanted to fix and what I wanted to like approach, and I think I approached it from a point of view where we are friends. I think I wanted to make sure I was like always maintaining, I think, a friendly and optimistic view of things, but it was also like I think what we'll later talk about is kind of being professional and like it's really hard to find that like middle ground of like I want to be nice, but I also have to let you know that we have deadlines and we can't not meet those deadlines. And I found that balance just by getting to know everyone personally. I think it was very lucky to have four. I think four is a very nice amount of people. If it was more, it would have been a little harder. I think I would still approach it the same way. But the more I got to know each engineer, the more I got to know kind of like their workflow. I understood who worked really, really late at night, which was basically everyone. And I would adjust my schedule a lot. My office hours, we'd go sometimes 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Rarely was it ever 4 a.m., but it sometimes would hit there. And so getting to know people, I think, is a really like humanistic way of being a leader and being able to meet them there, but still being able to say, hey, I think we're on the same goal. We have the same goal here. We want to have these things done and we want to see like a really great game. And I think that's the way I hopefully always kept it going. I would have like these awkward team meetings every week. But I think it was a lot of fun just because I got to know everyone and that was really great even after. So yeah,
Good.
but
I mean, like
yeah.
I know I can definitely say that you definitely cared about people as well as the project. And I think that it's very possible to do both, to care about the people that are working on it as well as the project itself. That's something that I think is usually left out of leadership conversations, though, in terms of like most of it's like whenever I hear about people chatting about like leadership in regards to like projects, like it is mainly about the structuring of like how to make the project, but then the health of the team is then in the like, okay, do you care about them as people? Do you learn about them? Do you properly like have conversations outside of the project at large? And those conversations don't need to be like big, like meaningful, like deep conversations, but like they're conversations about like, oh, like how was your day? And like actually caring about what's going on just with them, like how they're coming to the project and like how they're feeling. Um, and I think with that, before we move on to uh the next question, the next larger question, I think we should chat a little bit about online leads and crew. Um, since we did have a hybrid team, and that can be a bit weird for um the balance of like meetings and just communication at large. Uh, what's funny is that we ended up using a Discord server in order to mainly communicate. And because of that, a lot of our actual like working was asynchronous anyway. It was the like, okay, figuring out um like yes. Ignore, I skipped over it. Uh, that the Discord server slide. Thank you, Charlie. Um, the like so we ended up having a Discord server which I divided into like the bureaucracy of like bookkeeping. This is where you find documents. This is where Charlie does schedule reminders. This is where like we keep track of people's birthdays. Like we never used the stand-up channel. The like our server rules of like um this is like the server rules of just like how do we want to treat each other as people, like and announcements to the group at large. Um where we basically did a little team chatting of like Art would have a channel and then a lot of threads underneath it. Harrison had their own usability place. Like people would end up basically just huddling in a corner and chatting about their thing to everyone, as well as as well as going in between and to properly talk about where all the departments would intersect. We had our shenanigans of just game nights, chatting about random fun things that were happening in the uh, like in the physical space that we were in, but also just like online fun things like memes, just, like showing off pets. Um, my beloved out of context Twitch channel where everyone was taken out of context of random things that they would say during meetings and outside of meetings. There are some weird ones in there. Um, and then just the different voice channels of like how we ended up figuring out the different ways of dividing work and play. With fun being play, all of these being more specifically work oriented. Um, but this is where we ended up basically conducting all of our asynchronous work. And the only real in-person day that we kind of had, well, we had two. We had a class period, which was on Thursdays, and then sorry about, I should just get out of this and then do it this way, is how I should do it. It is not there. It is here. We ended up being in person on Thursdays, and then we were in person on Saturdays as well. For Thursdays being the class uh, that we had because we ended up making the game during a class. Yes, Charlie, professionalism in student teams. Yes. I'm responding to folks in our own little Zoom chat. So if I just start to say things, that's what that is. People are heckling me in here without saying anything. Truly. Cowards. Um, but then Saturday was our just like uh however long folks would want to come in and be in person to work, we would do that. But otherwise it was basically just the Discord server. And that ended up kind of blending in our online and in-person folks pretty well because basically most communication ended up happening through the Discord server. Um, like on our Saturday meetings, since no one else was within the workspace, it was just our team. We would end up basically having everyone like that wanted to come in online just in a Discord call, and we would all just like chat with them. Like people that were in person would chat with them over the Discord call as a way to just like integrate them into what folks were doing in the in-person space. As just oh, we're working on UI. Oh, Cameron's on call in the Discord. We'll just like bring her in to like end up chatting about like how we want to actually implement that and how we want to get Sung, our UI engineer, to implement it in the future. Um, things like that. Uh, anyone else have anything to say about online in person? A lot of it, I think, was the Discord server, but
I think that you've covered it. I want to make sure that we hit all of our questions, and I
yeah,
have some people that I want to talk about for the next question,
I agree.
which is what are things that we did to strengthen team bonds, which is kind of very closely related to team culture. Moose, could you please go to the team culture ritual slide? I'm going to give a
Thank you for
brief,
actually telling me where to go.
a little up in the presentation. There you go, right there.
Wow. Nope.
Yep, right there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give a little intro to this slide, and then I want Abby to explain what we are seeing on the left here. Uh, so we did a lot of different rituals on the WereCleaner to build our team culture and to make sure that people felt like they were a valued member of the team. One on the top right is we had a little baby Kyle, which is adorable, and I'll let other people talk more about this, but this is like a little plushie that we gave to people for certain things. Again, other people will be able to explain it. We have a picture of Babe Ruth, which is, I suppose, a reference to the fact that I wanted us to keep knocking it out of the park like Babe Ruth,
And
and
also
nobody
mentioning
on the
during
team
every
knew who Babe
single
Ruth
meeting.
was. Yeah, I would say that very often, and absolutely no one knew the baseball legend Babe
No,
Ruth.
that's false. Most people knew.
Very wrong. But Abby, because you are the editor and creator of the video on the left, can you explain what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, so we tried our hand at basically doing YouTube devlogs. So we kind of compiled some ideas, a bunch of pre-release footage, things like that, and I edited a few things. They are, I think, kind of fun to watch. And if you want to check them out, they're on our YouTube channel. I forget the handle, just Google WereCleaner. It's going to be on there. Um, but this one here is the last one we did, and it's basically just a montage of our Discord activity. You might be noticing nothing here is really on topic to the game other than the game is breaking. The rest of it is kind of like, well, you can kind of just watch right now. It's everything. But if you want a sense of kind of, I think, the effect of the team culture, watch this because this is all stuff that like we weren't really sort of setting out to do of like let's go hang out on like a Saturday and like it's all documented in the Discord. This is just the culture throughout the entire dev cycle where people are working at 2 a.m. and just posting 2 a.m. thoughts and it is really in its own way kind of beautiful.
What an
Agreed.
elegant explanation for that. I love it. And then uh
That
now
was perfectly
going
timed.
yeah, perfect. Going to the baby Kyle slide, can somebody here, I was thinking maybe Harrison volunteer to explain what the hell baby Kyle is and what impact this had on the team?
Sure. So as Moose said earlier, I think Baby Kyle is a little crochet Kyle. And then you can see in the top one of the top right photos, there's like a larger Kyle. So I think Moose made Baby Kyle quite quickly. And he was quite unstable, like his neck was very loose. And so we started like passing Baby Kyle around to like let people take Baby Kyle home, and then made a channel for people to post pictures of baby Kyle, and it just became a bit of a ritual to have different members of the team um, take baby Kyle and then take a picture with him sometime during the week, and then when we come back for a full team meeting, they get to like shout out somebody during Scrum and be like, this person did really great with the shaders, so they get baby Kyle this week, and we like kind of kept a bit of a list of who got baby Kyle. And it was a very, very wholesome way to shout people out. I also think it was nice because we got to see what everyone was doing. A lot of people took baby Kyle on vacations. I think that's baby Kyle in my car in the bottom right.
Yep.
Yeah, driving from work, I think. So like stuck in LA traffic. Baby Kyle hitting the bottle, Baby Kyle behind the wheel, Baby Kyle with Santa, and so on. So yeah, it was nice to just get to see everybody um, embracing Baby Kyle and then giving him to everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you said was actually really interesting, that it's like not only is it a way to shout someone out and like build this culture of respect and appreciation and like verbalizing our positive thoughts and feelings for each other, but it's also a great way to see into the like life of people and you know how they go about their time on their weekend. Like for so many of these, there was one, I think it's the Santa one. I think that was you that took it, Cameron, right?
Yeah, no, the
That
dude.
series that
Oh,
series of photos was the first time I ever saw what your house or the surrounding area looked like. And I was like, oh, this is like where Cameron lives. That's kind of cool.
I I'm an enigma, okay? I had to commute my whole senior year, dude. That was like a
Commuting an hour.
1 hour, sometimes 2 hours. I'd wake up like 3 hours before my class. It was like at 8. And then taking that picture with Santa, I had to do that out in public where there's a lot of people. That's a very busy area. And I'm pretty sure there's like people right behind it because it's in a restaurant. And I had to like go to the guy. I was like, please don't look at me while I'm
Oh, that's
doing this.
awesome.
So
I
there you
was gonna
go.
try to increase the size to see it. I think you're right
Horrible.
though.
So,
Horrifying.
yeah, the broader point of something like Baby Kyle is that if you're managing a student team, the things that you need to do to build a good positive culture are not like these weird, you know, very hard ethereal things. Like they could be tangible, small bits of appreciation that you show your team members that could build up into something meaningful over time. Because at the start of this, we got a lot of feedback from people outside of the team. They're like, "Why are you having people compete for a plushie every week? Like that's really weird." But to people inside of the team, you know, after a couple rounds of getting Baby Kyle, it was this like nice, fun, like communal prize that we could all share. And it was like telling a story together. And by the end of the year, it was like this meaningful thing that even our faculty members knew about. And in fact, the last person who now currently owns Baby Kyle is Andy Nealon, who was the head of the AGP program. So he was the last person to ever have earned it. But Harrison, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was also gonna say, I think it was especially nice that the process of giving baby Kyle, when I think it was like when Charlie or Moose had baby Kyle, because they're like overseeing the whole project, like it can be very difficult to know who to give it to. They're maybe only interacting with like the leads in a given week.
Oh,
And so then they
no.
would have the chance to
We would
know.
interact with everyone.
I seem to
Yeah.
remember there being at least one or two times where it was kind of democratized among the leads who would get baby Kyle, like who did a good job on, among the crew, so that it wasn't just like people within my line of sight get baby Kyle. It was, everyone on the team, if you worked pretty hard and your lead got to see that, then you'd be able to get baby Kyle.
Mhm. Uh, everyone got it, I think, twice. We ended up keeping a list on a whiteboard within our space of just like, okay, who got baby Kyle last week and who did they just give it to? And it ended up like I think at the very end we ended up realizing, oh, dang, everyone has gotten it like twice. I think maybe only one person didn't get it twice or something. Like, but we did it for so long that it was
Yes.
like it was almost inevitable because it was basically just an appreciation thing of just like,
Mhm.
okay, so it would basically be like a leapfrog of, okay, who did that person interact with a lot that week, who did that person see working a lot that week, like who did they see like having a hard time that week, like, and like really pushing through it, like it was both personal and professional.
And
The name of the
wow, that's a pretty good tie-in. And then real quick before we go to the next question, Moose, could you go to the next
yeah,
slide, please?
yeah.
Another big aspect of building your team culture, you're going to want to have some good events. Top left image here. This is just a cute image after one of our. It might
I
have
think
been
it was
our
after
midterm.
midterm.
Yeah, it
Hmm.
was after our midterm build review, so that was nice. But we did things like game nights, which you can see in the bottom left. That's me trying to sneak into Levi and Abby's room to steal baby Kyle, as one does. Top right, we did fun.
White elephant.
This was White Elephant, yes, because I never played it before. Then we did some ramen night or a couple of
Uh,
team dinners to celebrate different points in the game's development. But, if you're building a team and you want them to become better friends and get to know each other, then absolutely structure some fun events for people to go to. And these are, great memories. I think we all have very fond experiences. And I'm very glad that we were able to share these together. But
Mm.
I don't think there's a ton to talk about there, and I would much rather make sure
I
that we
think
hit all the questions.
I think one more thing, I'll be quick. The only thing I want to add on is that we didn't do these events like every single week. We didn't try to do it like 3 times a week. Like it was a thing of like people had lives outside of the game, and we didn't want to make it so that we were the only folks that people were hanging out with. People have friends outside of the team, and that's something that is healthy and very good to maintain as just a way of just like the team isn't the only social group that you have, and like not trying to monopolize that time makes everyone a much happier person down the
Absolutely.
line.
It's an
Uh,
excellent point.
all right. But our next question. Okay. How did the team culture evolve over time? I think a way to start out is Charlie and I at the beginning of production, like when we were still in pre-production, figuring out what the game was, sat down and kind of figured out what we want the team to look like in terms of like we figured out some pillars of how we wanted things to feel on the team. We wanted to be communicative. We wanted people to still be learning because it was a class. And this was maybe some people's first time being in these roles. We wanted to be encouraging of like everyone coming together as a community in terms of helping people out with things and not being an island. Um, and that's kind of just where we started. Someone else, I think, should probably take where we ended. Um, but
Yeah,
uh,
something interesting for where we ended. If you could go to the slide that shows our task completion rate, I'm
ooh,
going to use this
yeah,
to make a broader point than
yeah,
just we completed tasks uniformly.
yes.
Uh, so you can see that, and this is kind of indicative of like the team forming and becoming a better unit together. Near the start of the game, we would complete a very the amount of sprint goals that we would complete was very in flux. So one week it would be over 90%, one week it would be like near 75%. Uh, so some weeks were great, some weeks were bad. And that's a period where even though you've set good pillars for what you want your team to be, the team is still, getting to know each other, right? Like this is a formative period. And in fact, it's one of the most important periods in the game's development because it's how you come out of that chaos that really, really matters. And something that you could see just through our sprint goal completion percentage is that over the course of time, we were able to get much more consistent, especially once we hit the second semester mark, where we start sprint one, because I had an awful naming convention going in the first semester and I wanted to change it so badly. Uh, where we actually start, especially near sprints six, just kind of hitting the exact same completion rate for every single sprint, which I think showed that the team got really comfortable with each other. We got really comfortable understanding what we could and couldn't do in terms of work. And that consistency, I think, was something that we found because of the key pillars that we started at the start of the project, right? Although there was that period of flux where we were all still learning what it means to work together, having those core pillars that we just discussed helped us near the end because we had an identity to coalesce around. If you don't tell people, what to strive for, then people are going to have 1,000 different ideas of what the vision to be both a team member, and what the game is supposed to be. They're going to have 1,000 different ideas of both of those things. So having pillars down at the start really, really helped us near the end be consistent. So I highly recommend that to people if you're building a team. Make sure that they understand what it means to be a good contributing member of that team.
Mhm. And then take a lot of actions in order to actually inspire those goals among the team as opposed to simply trying to disseminate it as information. But to Cameron Abbey Harrison, how did it feel to be a part of the culture, I guess? Like with Charlie and I trying to set
Well,
up things, I guess.
I think that I've been on game teams where every idea was like immediately attempted because we just had like no structure. And I've been on game teams where every idea was shot down. And this was a game team where every idea was given some time to breathe. And then we would like take a lot of time. Charlie would make a lot of estimates on how long things would take, like figuring out tasks. And then we would make a decision based on like everyone's communication, right? And I think that probably the best example of team culture in terms of tasks evolving over time is going from the one of the first like big decisions that we had to make as like a leads team, which was I think controller support, into one of the last big decisions we made, which was mobile support. And I think that like those two, not that those two are so different, but that they're so similar. Like in with the controller support, Charlie came in with all the facts and figures and was like, "This is exactly how long it's going to take us. This is how much weight we're going to have to put on each of these people. Do we think we should do it?" And then we ended up saying yes. And in mobile support, it was kind of similar. We were like, "Okay, we know exactly about how much work this is going to be. So it really depends on whether or not players can pick up the game on mobile." And I think that like that immense amount of both communication and also structure to the decision making process has defined the WereCleaner, going forward. I've been on, like I said, in the going forward, I've been on a number of teams that like we can't make a decision because we have, because we do have no structure to how we want to make a decision, and then others where we can't make a decision because it always gets shut down. So I really appreciate that about this team is that the decision making process was very democratic and it was also very like facts based.
I'll
Awesome.
also jump in here because you brought up mobile support, and I see an opportunity for me to dive in here. There's an interesting thing that we did there in terms of figuring out whether or not we would go for it, which was basically setting certain milestones very early on that certain people on the team would sort of assess. So, as Harrison mentioned, for mobile, we cared a lot about playability and usability. So, the issue is we realized very, very quickly is not, oh, does the game run necessarily on mobile? The issue is, okay, does it actually play and is it fun from play experience? Do the controls work? Stuff like that. So, we set a timeline of like, I think it was a week or two, and we set a couple goals that Harrison, two, thanks. And then we set a couple goals that Harrison sort of was aiming for the entire time of like, how does it feel to play? How long does it take to get through the first two levels versus on PC versus on controller? And we used those as kind of our threshold. And we decided, okay, if we do not hit those thresholds within 2 weeks, we won't do mobile because it is not a high quality enough experience. And that was an interesting one because it sort of compartmentalized the development of that to sort of the two of us, where I was making changes, pushing it to Harrison, Harrison was doing testing, and then they sent back information to me. And it became this kind of good closed loop with Charlie and Moose and the other leads sort of seeing what was happening, but otherwise taking a hands off approach. And especially because this was happening in the last 2 months of development, I think it saved everyone a lot of stress because most people didn't have to actually worry about it.
Hmm. And with that, Charlie, I think you take the next question.
Yeah. Can I skip to a different question
Go
just
ahead.
for the sake of time and we can come back? I want to be, just because it's kind of like in the name of the presentation. I want to talk about what was it like leading other students, and what was it like to take direction from other students? Because one of the most interesting parts about this team, and I think this composition of people that we have here on the panel, is that we have a bunch of people who had to manage people that were below them or were leads in different areas or stuff like that. Uh, and we have a bunch of other people who were kind of the ones, for lack of a better term, being managed and had to take a lot of direction for what they were going to do each week. So I don't really have a exhibit to immediately go to, but if anyone wants to jump in with maybe an exhibit that they think they could, make a point about, please say what your experience was either leading or being led and maybe how those two intersect with each other.
I could start with a small one. Um, Not to do the stone thing again. Okay. Something that I ended up doing as creative director in order to try and foster a better relationship with each person on the team, like me and them kind of relationship, so that they felt as though they could actually come to me, was director and crew hangouts. And so basically what I ended up doing was scheduling a one-on-one meeting with folks where we would just shoot the shit and hang out and not talk about the game, but instead talk about each other and like try to just get to know each other better. Like we talked about favorite games, shows. We talked about different art projects people were working on in their free time. Um, I know that Cameron and I during ours talked a lot about DC and Marvel. Like it was a lot of just trying to get to know each other and become someone that like we actually liked to talk to each other, like to like to talk to. Yeah, as more of a like, okay, we can talk about things outside of the game, and it isn't weird for either of us. It's a more like I feel as though I can actually talk to you as opposed to you're a like you're someone who is simply just leading, like directing me and leading me, and not someone that I can actually approach. And so this was a really good way of being able to actually kind of knock down some of those barriers and make it a lot more of a like, yeah, no, we're all students here and nothing really has changed in the fact of like we can still chat and we can still be friends. Like there is the like proper hierarchy of like if there's something that's wrong with um something that's happening on the project in terms of like, okay, we need you to do something or something like a bug has come up and we need you to do like if there's anything task wise, like that then kind of like doesn't supersede the relationship, but it adds on a layer of like, okay, we trust that what we're doing here is a more like it's a friendly process. It isn't a boss employee type of relationship, and it's more of a like we're in this together working on this thing with a common goal of getting something that both of us are proud of. And it leads more of a working together aspect into the actual relationship. So I think that's a good like director leadership thing. Um, Charlie, Cameron, do you want to go in? Like if we're literally going down hierarchy type of thing. Charlie and Cameron, do you guys want to talk about how it was leading people?
Sure. Go to the meeting schedule slide, slide 12, please. So, one key aspect of leading a bunch of people, especially if you're a producer, is making sure that everybody is aligned on stuff. And if you have a team of 30 plus people, that gets really hard. So, in order to figure out how you're going to align the team towards certain goals, you need to have a great meeting schedule to make sure that people have times within the week to get together and discuss things. So, very early on, I wanted to make sure that that meeting schedule was one as minimal as possible, right? Cutting out as many superfluous meetings as I could, and two, clearly communicated to everybody. So for crew members, the things or the meetings that they really needed to pay attention to were on Thursdays. That's when our sprints started. So we would do a big sprint kickoff meeting where we explained the goals for the next week, what people were going to be doing, some of the stuff that we hope to see in the build in the coming week, and also celebrating the stuff that we had just finished in the last sprint. On Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays, we would basically work for the entire sprint on our various tasks. And then at Tuesday, we would at 5 p.m. deliver a build to the AGP faculty online. And that was a small meeting between myself, Moose, and Cameron, where we go through, we all verify the build for ourselves, see if there's any major bugs that we want to talk about. And then one incredibly key meeting that I highly recommend that other people implement into their schedules is on Wednesday, we had this buffer day inside of sprints where we did a leads review or a leads meeting. This is where everybody would come together. We would find a time where all the leads can make it. And we would essentially discuss in each of our departments, how is the project going? What are things that went great last week? What are things that didn't go great last week? And this is for both processes and specific tasks. And most importantly, how could we improve on those things that we felt didn't go very well? So by having a little bit of a breathing period in the middle of the week, that really helped us prepare ourselves for the next sprint because you'll see that on a student project, I think all of you know, you do homework on weekends, right? That's just like unfortunately the real truth. When you're in a professional team environment, this is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, how you're handling this. But when you're a student, you have to adjust to a student schedule. So we really had to use Saturday and Sunday as work days. So therefore, we couldn't just use those as break days or days off to prepare. We had to bake that day off into the middle of the week on Wednesday to make sure that that next sprint was ready and prepared to give to the team. So yeah, if you're going to be leading lots of people, make sure that you have a meeting schedule and you know when you're communicating to people and what you're communicating to them at those meetings.
Nice. Cameron?
Yeah, I feel like there's not too much from my side, but I think one thing is if you are a lead, and especially for like technical stuff, I think constantly like review how you are delivering like information for because I felt like I was always kind of like the middleman of like, okay, so this is what all the leads kind of talked about, and this is kind of what's going wrong. So we gotta handle that. Or not going wrong, or like maybe just what's going well. what's not going so well. I think I had to change a lot of how I communicated tasks. Throughout our semester because it just happens. When you realize that something is maybe just not being as effective as possible, or maybe like the way you're delivering announcements is not being received, I kind of always wanted to self-evaluate and say, okay, what way can I approach this better? And I think that's a really good thing because it gives you the ability to self-critique and to constantly keep everyone kind of like in it. I think the other thing is that like Charlie kind of already mentioned, we were students. And especially when you are just comp sci and engineering, all of it just kind of was mayhem. And I knew a lot of the classes that everyone was taking, and they were really hard, and it would just be a lot. And so I think what I always tried to kind of like be representative of was kind of the engineering team of being like, hey, this is like maybe too much. We need 2 weeks for this task. Or like, she's already, one of our team members have already worked like over 8 hours. I think we should probably give him a task that maybe is smaller, and less of a bigger task, and maybe next week. And so I kind of was always like a delegator for them just because I understood a lot of from bonding and from talking to them, I understood a lot of their schedules. I understood a lot of kind of their work ethic. And I understood it from the perspective of just being a student too. And I think you can also take that as well, being a professional, of understanding other people's kind of work life and being able to balance that with them and being able to have those kind of conversations and being able to approach them in a friendly but kind of stern way, you know? So hopefully I always did that. I was just constantly changing things up, constantly change. I would always meet on Thursdays for announcements or anything that we needed to talk about in person, but I was a very active, like I was like a Discord bot. I felt like I was saying something like constantly pinging everyone saying like, "Oh, can we get on a call really quick?" So, yeah. That's pretty much it for me. Also, sorry about the lighting. There's like the sun's coming in.
Outdoors. Uh,
Yeah.
no, but that I think lead as an advocate for your crew is a really good point to take from that, Cameron. I think that's a really good one. Harrison or Abby, y'all want to talk about being led slash not having people to lead?
Yeah, I think usability was in like a really weird position because normally I think usability is like not really like a lead position on par, and to some ways it isn't still. But um, I think that in this team specifically, we kind of made usability a role that was both led and leading others, as in like I was both taking orders from people, like things that I need to pay attention to, and things that I had to pay attention to when things were coming down the pipeline, and make sure that I tested for various things. I had to make sure tutorials were up to date. Um, and then I was also kind of giving orders in a sense where, like, in a given meeting, in a given leads meeting, I might be like, "Hey, players are mistaking this tutorial text, so we need to change it," or players are running into this thing with this tool, so this is my suggestion for how we change it. So it definitely wasn't. Yeah, it definitely was not that I was necessarily leading anybody or being led directly. I think I was pretty autonomous, pretty independent. Um, but yeah, my relationship to leadership was that I, you know, gave orders and received them, on pretty equal par.
Awesome. And then Abby, what would you say your experience was?
Mine was interesting. So I was kind of doing my own thing for a decent chunk because a lot of my tasks were very unrelated to anything the team was doing. Like our school capstone has a whole system of sort of things that you do throughout the project to figure out like who your audience is and what's your marketing strategy going to be. And that is completely not unrelated to the game because ideally it should be quite tied to the game. Like you are going to make a game that has a good one-liner from the beginning, which we did because Moose had a very good one-liner pitch to the game. Werewolf janitor who accidentally kills people and has to clean up their bodies to not get fired. Love it. Like Moose and the team did like 90% of my job just by making a good premise and then executing on it well. Um, the thing though is that it's an interesting role when you start in a very asynchronous point, and then as the year progresses and development progresses, you have to get a lot more hands-on and in tune with the project, especially when I started doing mobile stuff. There's kind of a shift in responsibility where it stops being what do I personally think is a good angle to take things, and now it's like what do team members think should be highlighted in a devlog, in a marketing piece. When we're making the trailer, it became a whole review process with showing it to the leads and getting input and doing a lot of revisions. And that was an interesting experience because I think starting autonomous and then getting a little more connected with the whole team worked in our case, but it required some flexibility. And I'm sure that a lot of other roles on most student games will have some component of that where how you were being managed versus managing changes. And then after release, it kind of became a whole different thing. Like marketing does not stop after the game just like releases. You're gonna have to maintain the community, which frankly I take very little responsibility for. Harrison and Moose did an absolutely great job on that. But at every point in the process, there's kind of a change in what your relationship is with people and what you're doing.
Nice. Nice. Abby is a free spirit.
Yeah, Abby has the Abby zone in that one slide.
In the Discord slide.
No. In
No.
the team hierarchy. I think there's like an Abby jail in the top
Yes.
right.
Yes, there is. This is Abby
Yes,
jail.
Abby jail. That's where you put your marketing people so that they don't go to business on you.
Yes. Yes. I mean, we were lucky with a with someone who is really good with games already. And loves games. And is an engine sorry. But anyway. Okay. Since we skipped around in our questions a little bit, I feel like we could either do the how we keep work and friendship separate, or we could do ownership. I feel
I
like
like talking about the last two. I think that those are stuff that we haven't necessarily covered as much yet.
yeah, I agree. How about
So
we
yeah,
how about we do managing scope?
sure.
All right. So how did we manage scope with such a large team?
Uh,
Charlie, you want to start?
yes, I would love to start. Go to one of the milestone build reviews, please, or perhaps let's start with the Figma board, the slide right after that.
Figma board.
So, managing scope with a large team, how do you do it? Uh, there was a couple steps in this process. So, in order to manage scope, you first need to know what is the scope of the thing that you're proposing. On a vacation, I spent every night writing over, like, I think it was 400 individual tasks that I could think of that would need to happen in order for the game to be made. Uh, that was all in a spreadsheet. It was a very long spreadsheet. After I did that, I was then able to sort those tasks into different milestone schedules. So, one of them was a schedule that showed the entire project from start until the very end. Another was a macro schedule that showed all of the goals that we would want inside of a given milestone. So, like in, yeah, for instance, Gold Master. Uh, and then one of them was a sprint schedule. So that's all the stuff that we would do inside of a given sprint. So although you can't see it in this image, the macro is like three of these individual sprint schedules put together. And what you're seeing is just one of the sprint schedules. But to manage scope on a really big team, I would make these Figma boards, which are obviously not what a nice professional would make inside of probably Google Sheets, but we did them in Figma because it's easy to move the little sticky notes around. At the start of a sprint, we would write down all of the tasks that we thought that people would need to do based on the amount of hours we thought the task would take. So some people had a red task, which was like 8 hours. Some people had two oranges, which were two 4-hour tasks. People were working roughly 8 hours a week, I think. Uh, but at the end of the sprint, we would then go back and determine did that task actually get complete? And we would mark it in green if it was. So this is probably for midway through a sprint review or something, because typically there would be far more green tasks. Uh, but at the end of the sprint, we would be able to see what is actually getting done on this game, right? Which is all the stuff that's not labeled in green. Why did that thing not get done? And do we have a plan to address it in the following sprints before our next milestone is complete? So oftentimes the answer is, yeah, we can slot something into, the next sprint if we didn't finish it. Maybe we made some progress. That's totally fine. Sometimes things take longer than, 5 days to make. That makes a ton of sense. But there was one time with a particular feature where using this method, we were actually able to see that this feature had been in our, like, essentially incomplete for several weeks in a row because it was so difficult. We eventually decided to drop it. The feature that I'm talking about is ragdoll bodies. Initially in the game, you sling the bodies over the shoulder, and I see the time, so I'll finish up real quick. In the game right now, you sling your bodies over the shoulder, and you can just carry them around. What we wanted is that you could use the vacuum cleaner to drag ragdoll bodies around. It would have been really funny and really cool, and we're very sad we didn't get it in. But using this structure, we were able to see that this task was taking one of our engineers like I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks to do, and it was just incredibly difficult. And we couldn't figure it out. So we were able to then cut that feature and focus on something that was maybe less funny, just slinging the body over the shoulder, but something that worked equally as well for the game. So when you're managing scope, it's not just about making sure that the overall structure of your game is composed and designed elegantly, as Levi, who was our lead designer, did expertly, but it's making sure that the individual tasks that you're doing are all accounted for, because otherwise you're going to remember, oh shoot, we wanted this feature that we've had in the backlog forever. Where are we going to put it now? So yeah, that's my hyper quick version of how we do this, although I see that we're at 6:21.
Uh, do we have any questions, or are we good to just keep going?
We do have one question actually from the
Okay.
chat. How do you shoot down your friend's idea for the game without leaving them feeling bitter? Which
Ooh.
is a very good question.
It is a good question. Okay. I mean, I did a good amount of this. I can start with this. I could start with this question. Um, I'd say that a lot of it is in delivery, but also leaving the conversation still open. It depends on kind of where you're at with like was the feedback actually something that you were asking for, or was it not? Was it feedback for an idea which you already have an idea for and are already like, okay, I know what I want to do already. I'm not actually like trying to figure out what to do. It just needs to happen. Is it something which you've already is it something which you've already thought of and is more of a thing of like, already did the like thinking out what this would end up looking like within the game, within whatever you're working on, and it just won't work. A lot of it is just honesty with, okay, this is the reason why I don't actually want to do the thing or like your idea, and just being honest with the person as to like, okay, this is why. And most people respond pretty well to honesty. Like it's the couching of the delivery of just, okay, I appreciate that you wanted to give me an idea at all. Like thank you for spending the time to think of something for me. Like thank you for actively like actively trying to help. Because like showing the appreciation for the person of like, okay, you spent the time to try to do this, thank you. And then also like just being honest with why you can't or won't or don't want to take the idea. Um, whether that's talking about what you already have, talking about what you've already done to figure out that it doesn't work, or basically just being like, no, actually, that isn't in line with what I was thinking of for the solution. Like, instead, I want this kind of thing. If you want to help me, like, we could chat more about this thing and like see if like together we can kind of brainstorm how to go down that road. A lot of it is the like bringing them into it and not shutting them out necessarily. It's the it comes along with the collaborative, like trying to actually work on something together. It's the like as long as you're not properly just shutting them down, being like, no, thanks, that's it. Like people generally tend to feel a lot better about it if they're brought into the process. Harrison, you've got something, so go.
I feel like so I think that two sides of the question. On one side is like when crew makes a suggestion about something, which I don't know that I can really speak to as much because I was in those conversations, but I don't think I was ever the one shooting them down. I never had the power to shoot them down. But I experienced this so much in playtests, and like if there's one thing that you take away from this about usability testing or playtesting in general, it's don't only playtest with game developers, other game developers. In fact, I would argue don't playtest with other game developers pretty much at all, because they are really cool people and they will have so much feedback, and a lot of the feedback will be completely irrespective of where your scope is at. Um, so many times, another game developer would be like, "Oh, you need some VFX here, right?" And I'm like, "That's so cool. We are nowhere near our VFX pass. Like, that's not gonna happen." I can't even make a note about it because like the animation that you want VFX on won't exist in 3 weeks, right? So like that's not gonna happen. Um, and then, when it came to like players who were not game developers making suggestions, a lot of the time they'd make suggestions that um like I would write down what they wanted to happen and then try and get to the root of what they were, to the root of what they were like asking about. So like if they were suggesting a way that something could be explained, I'd be like, okay, we need to address the tutorial for this area. So a lot of it was like you take the advice, you maybe even write down the advice, and then you try and understand what that advice was addressing. And then if one of y'all can address like when crew makes suggestions, because I can't do that.
Uh, I mean, uh, Cameron, did you have to do any of the like shooting down crew suggestions for things?
I think there's sometimes would be like maybe Sung would have like something for like UI suggestions, or maybe one of the other engineers had like an idea for like restructuring certain things. And usually most of the time it was like valid stuff, like, or I think the main thing is like having discourse about it and not being afraid to just like kind of just talk it out. Because even if you maybe disagree, maybe get to the kind of maybe there's another point inside their idea that actually does work to some degree. And so being like able to kind of talk it through, I think always help. But I don't know if there's too many like shooting down ideas. I think you know what? It might have been a lot of shaders stuff that I think I had to like constantly shoot down because I knew that
Yeah,
we just didn't have time for it.
yeah.
And I think I had to be very like, no, we don't have the time. We can't really do that effect. It's really cool. I think that's also another thing. Just if you are the person receiving the feedback, I think it's good to be kind, but it's also not like don't take it too personally, I think. I think sometimes it's really hard when you like connect yourself to the ideas or opinions that you give, but I think it's not a rejection of who you are. It's just an people have different opinions and it's really good to be able to talk it out, to talk it through, even if someone maybe disagrees. But yeah, no, it was I don't think we had too many like it was mostly like we had to talk through a lot of design stuff, and that was amongst leads, or maybe whenever we had the whole team play the game, I think that's when we all kind of like went through a lot of like different ideas of like what we could put here and there. So yeah.
hmm I think that's a good read of it. Do we have any more questions, or should we?
We have
Uh,
a couple, but since we're coming up on time, it might be good to kind of, if you guys are in the channel, you can answer. One of them is actually about AGP itself, so I was like, I can answer that now that I've done this. One,
there you
but
go.
if you guys
There
have
you
anything
go.
else, I think there's like one more topic that you wanted to talk about, so you can talk about that, and then we can just wrap up. I'll close up the yeah.
Okay, nice. Then yeah, in our little channel, we kind of realized that this question goes pretty well into the ownership question that we've got of what did ownership for tasks and work look like? Where it's basically just like how did we kind of keep the team engaged properly? And I think that from the perspective of like giving tasks, a lot of the ownership would end up kind of being like trying to keep someone in the same realm of a task. Like an easier example for me is thinking about engineering in terms of we had an engineer who was working on NPC animations for maybe 3 months. But like she owned basically all of it. Of like she would handle implementation, she would handle all of the actual state machines, she would handle like everything within code, and then also ended up talking a lot with the artists that were making the animations themselves. With art, it was a lot of like, okay, are you like we had two riggers on the team. We made one rigger basically take all of the NPC animations, and one rigger took all of the Kyle animations. So it was a thing of like they basically had their realm and they were able to showcase their own work and like their own abilities through something which was very tangible on a like portfolio level of they were able to put all of the NPC animations within their portfolio as a thing of like I worked on all the NPC stuff, or like for set dressing uh our crew designer ended up doing a lot of different rooms, which ended up being like she would end up handling all of the iterations of that set dressing, basically. So it would be a lot of like, oh, I'm able to show this room from start to finish as the like iterations that I got from feedback and all that. So it was, I think a lot of ownership ended up basically like setting a crew member on a path and then basically like letting them ride that path out to the end. As long as they were enjoying that path. We had a few times where it was a like, oh, I don't really know if I'm actually enjoying this type of work. Could I try something else? And if our like schedule stuff allowed it, schedule stuff, yes. If our schedule stuff allowed it, it ended up basically being a thing of like, oh, okay, like we can try you on this other task and we can give that work to someone else. And like sometimes we hit a really good like, oh no, they actually enjoyed that new work, and then it became something that they were excited about and properly wanted to engage in again. And sometimes it didn't, and then we had a little bit more of that like jumping process. Um, yeah, okay, we're right at 30, but if anyone else has like a small snippet to say, just so that I wasn't the only thing to say something about this one. Uh,
I can say something really quick, just in touch. You already kind of touched it with the engineering stuff, but like, just to give like some like origin story, the engineers we just like had them. They're all really great and incredible. Besides one person who we knew wanted to do like VFX, the rest didn't know what to really do, or like they're like comfortable with anything. And I think being able to just assign these random tasks and being able to find out where people really liked those niches, I think made it easier to constantly give the same assignments as we like started the project go like kind of went on and on and on. And so just as a connection to like what Moose already said, but yeah, you already covered it pretty much.
nice. Because it was the time crunch of 2 minutes. Uh, okay. Uh, should we wrap here? Or this is the most awkward freaking end to, I don't know. No, we're not letting that play.
Come on, just one more.
Just one more?
Just
Just
one more for the posterity of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
One
gotta
more
yeah.
for
get
the
one more in.
posterity? One more?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not making the sound effect.
There it is.
One more. One more.
The
One more.
craziest joke to ever be included in a slideshow. I would like it to be known that I was not a part of the meeting
Yeah,
where
I know. I
that joke was
explicitly
created.
said when making the joke at the beginning, this is what happens when you're not there.
I know.
This is
But
That
this
wasn't a
is
joke. That was
the-
real.
yeah, it was
See,
100%
things like
real.
this is why we have firm hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
if anything, I trumped that decision if he would be in there anyway. I was
Yeah,
Exactly.
Moose was like, oh yeah, we need to like put these points on the slide, like 34 students, 1 year development. I was like,
yeah.
firm hierarchy, and we just kept
Firm
it.
hierarchy.
And then Charlie like made it a point to talk about firm hierarchy.
It's
Yeah.
important.
Incredible.
There you go.
It is
There you go.
important.
It is. Backbone of a team right
Yeah.
there.
Well,
Who to
yeah,
ask?
I think we're all good. I think this was really
Yeah,
fun.
if
It
we're
was great talking.
yeah, if we're done, thank you everyone. This was lovely to be here, lovely to chat, lovely to talk about this kind of stuff because it's important to have this kind of transparency in the process, I think. It's a interesting one to talk about. So
I
thank you for
think,
having us.
of course, thank you guys for coming by. It was incredible just having you guys come here and like meeting a lot of you again because I was like, oh my God, it's been like a month or so since graduation. Thank you guys for coming by. We have a couple of questions in our Discord channel if you want to come by and answer. One of them is about AGP structure itself, so I was like, wait, I can answer that now. But feel free.
Nice.
Thank you for coming by. And to our audience, thank you so much for coming by our first day of the SGDA Summit. We have another day tomorrow where we have things like the engineering panel, the game design fireside chat, and art show highlight, and showcasing some more student games that weren't able to make it to stream, as well as showcasing a lot of other great student games. So we'll be here same time tomorrow. We'll be sending out announcements. Thank you guys, the WereCleaner team, for being such a great talk to close out on, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thanks for having us. See you soon.